possible. He went on to convert a government experiment into a globally successful phenomenon. And that man is Shri RC Bhargava, who's here with us this evening. He was, of course, honored with the Padma Bhushan. And in 2015, Osamu Suzuki, the owner of Suzuki in Japan, said that Maruti Suzuki would not have been Maruti Suzuki without the leadership of Shri RC Bhargava. We are so honored and so happy and so elated to have him with us at Business Standard Manthan. Ladies and gentlemen, at 89, he's still chairman of the company, and he's actively plays golf, and he continues to contribute to modern India's growth story. Put your hands together in a thunderous round of applause. Namaste, sir. Very, very warm welcome. Aye, please. And talking to him is AK Bhattacharya.
Thank you, Geetika. Thank you, Mr. Bhargav. Thank you, everyone here, for staying on here and what promises to be a riveting discussion with a man who is synonymous with India's initially small car revolution and then all car revolution. Mr. Bhargav, you know, Maruti was born in 1981. We are here to celebrate 50 years of Business Standard. So Business Standard was born just about 6 years ago. But the difference is that you were born in 1981, and 44 years later, you continue to occupy 43% of the market share. How did you achieve this? In a sense, in a market which is so dynamic, so competitive. So tell us in brief the story of 44 years and how you stayed on top of this heap with the next person, the next industry is having a share of only 13%. How did it happen?
Well, I think there's no simple answer to your question, Ashok.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think what has kept Maruti on top are 2 or 3 factors. The first is that we have always tried to understand the Indian customer. And the Indian customer is not just the customer who has multiple houses and multiple kind of assets all over the world, but we are looking at the Indian customer right from the bottom up. And we try and cater to all the segments of the market. And we have tried to do that throughout. And to cater to this segment, we have tried to see that we give them maximum value for the money which they spend. Because I think we at least understand that the bulk of Indian customers do not have surplus money to waste. That the bulk of Indian customers value their assets and want to use it as reliably and with at least cost as possible. And that has been part of our ethos. The second part, I think, which has kept us ahead of all the others, is that we, from the beginning, have believed that the best results, not only in industry, but in many other walks of life, come if you work in a true spirit of partnership with everybody who is associated with your business. You know, over the years, and with a little bit of study of history, I have always felt that India has, on many occasions, lost out because individuals value their self-interest above the interest not only of people around them, but even of the nation. And we, from the beginning, decided that we would work with as partners with everybody. So within the company, we took steps, policies, actions, so that all employees, including the workers in the company, thought they were partners with us. We didn't have any kind of differences, so that we worked as partners with our supply chain. The entire supply chain was developed from scratch. There was nothing in India in 1982. And all the vendors who came up, we, from the beginning, educated them that if they worked with us as if they were partners in the business, both of us would grow. And you've seen the results not only in Maruti, but you've seen how much the auto component industry has grown and how big it has become. And it's the only, I think, sector of manufacturing in India which is truly world-class and which is exporting manufactured products of a large scale. We've tried to build partnerships with the dealers and any others associated with us. So I believe that if you have an eye on the customer and understand his customer and don't get carried away by what somebody else is doing in some other country, and also work with the true spirit of partnership, which means that everybody's interests should be safeguarded. Everybody must gain. It can't be that I shall gain, you need not gain. So it really is creating a win-win situation for everybody. And I think that's the two major things which have kept us on top.
Since we are on this subject, let me ask you a few supplementaries. How much of a role did the fact that the automobile market was largely protected at a time when Maruti started its operations, in a sense that it was not easy to import a car from anywhere, that tariffs were very high. So did that, was it any assistance, or was it, what kind of a role did it play actually?
You know, the automobile market has remained protected from imports even till now. It's not something which has been for a short time. It's been always. We don't allow import of cars. The new policy for EVs is the first departure from that policy where we are allowing a certain number of imports. The competition in India for cars actually developed only after the industry was delicensed in 1993. Till that time, there was no competition. And in fact, the real competition developed at the beginning of this present century, from 2000. But there has been competition now for the last 23, 24 years. At that time, the market, of course, was protected. But the market was also regulated in the sense that the government did not allow any kind of import of technologies. There was a huge restriction on import of components, localization. Taxes were very high. And the growth was limited because foreign exchange was a huge constraint. And even when we had a lot of demand pending in the country, we could not expand our manufacturing facilities right till after liberalization because there was no foreign exchange.
So it worked both ways actually. Yeah. In a sense, at one level, the entire industry was protected from imports.
It was protected, but we managed to grow the size of the industry. Despite the protection.
That's right, that's right.
And despite all the handicaps to growth, because we were in the height of socialism.
That's right.
And the car industry was not something which was favored by anybody.
That's right. How much of a role did the famous phased manufacturing program play in building the kind of partnerships that you talked about, the ecosystem of component industry that grew, the backward integration of sorts? How much of a role did the PMP play? Because a lot of people these days, Mr. Bhargava...
It's interesting, Ashok. Everybody normally criticizes the phased manufacturing program. Personally, I found that if there wasn't a phased manufacturing program, we probably would not have localized the component manufacturing as quickly and as well as we did. It was the pressure of the government's phased manufacturing policy, which in a sense compelled localization. I'll give an example. The Japanese set up 3 or 4 joint ventures to make light commercial vehicles. Those people did not localize as fast as was required. And you see what happened to them. When the yen became stronger and stronger, the costs went up hugely and they all went down. We were the fortunate ones because we had already localized to over 90%. And therefore the cost impact on us was minimal.
That's right. So PMP is one program which actually benefited not only Maruti, but also helped create that auto component
absolutely.
sector.
I think the PMP, despite the fact that it is in many ways, economists will criticize it, actually did a lot of good for us.
So can this be replicated in other sectors as well?
I think, in a sense, government is giving incentives for that to happen.
Okay.
When they say that your imports are related to local manufacturing and only 8,000 cars can be imported, they're virtually telling you that localized here. Also today, I think it's very evident that if you don't localize, your costs are much higher.
Much higher.
And the costs are unpredictable because the rupee is not a stable currency in the sense that
it is depreciating.
It keeps depreciating, costs keep going up. And therefore, even today, although we have localized this much, there is still a constant pressure on us to keep localizing the inner components which the vendors are importing, because that also adds to cost. So we have gone beyond our own localization to supporting the vendor community in localizing their manufacture so that overall the system has as little import as possible.
Okay. I mean, one last question on your 44-year journey, the past, before you come to the future. How much of a role did your being a government company till at least 1997, 98 play, in the sense that as long as you were initially a 74% owned government company, then it became a 60% owned company, and then you got virtually privatized. So there were 3 stages. So are there lessons to be learned for economic historians? Maruti at 74% government equity, Maruti at 60% government equity, Maruti as privatized. How would you see it and look back?
The lessons from Maruti are that it's very difficult to operate a partnership with government for any length of time.
I think that's a big message you are sending out.
And this business of gradually localization, it doesn't really do much good to the company. The real benefits that Maruti got was after government exited.
Okay. So post 1997, 98.
Even when government was a minority partner at 30–40%, there were still, in actual operations, a lot of problems in getting the kind of decisions you wanted to take. Even when we technically became a private company with 50–50 government, 50%.
There was a major battle that went on.
We had a major battle at that time. And the reason there is that the people in the government, the minister, the secretary, the joint secretary, they keep changing frequently. And when different people come, how they understand what has been going on and what their attitude is changes every time. There's no continuity. So it's not that partnerships with government as such are bad, but I think the circumstances in which people keep changing. And I think it's been widely accepted world over that continuity of management and policies is one of the essential things required for good management.
That's right.
You can't have that in a partnership with government.
So the government need not be in the business of producing cars.
Or
that's the
business,
message.
or
They're
any
not.
Business for that matter.
That's right. Let's move on. You know, I mean, you have seen the auto industry for the last so many years, and it has moved largely in the ICE category, in the sense that now we are at a kind of a crossroads. You know, wherein there is a major challenge that faces the industry, transitioning to a new form of cars. And this many companies are finding it very difficult to face up to. And so how is Maruti, and how do you think the Indian auto industry should face up to it? You have the EV policy you referred to. What is the scenario like? What are the opportunities and what are the challenges that you think we need to be mindful of?
See, we are fully committed to the goal of helping government achieve
As a company.
the zero carbon policy.
Okay.
We have considered the Indian situation and the Indian customer and the Indian infrastructure and the other, what should I say, handicaps or positives which are existing in India. And we believe that in our circumstances, we need not only electric vehicles, but we need to use all other technologies to achieve the goal of carbon reduction as quickly as possible. One of the reasons which is obvious is that electric vehicles are a very small part, and the way it's growing is going to take a long time before they're going to become. But during this time, if we have only ICs, then the carbon footprint is going to remain pretty large. But if those ICs today are converted to cleaner vehicles, whether at first through CNG or hybridization or use of ethanol or use of biogas or any other new technology which may come up, then while the EV rise keeps going up, which it should and will go, simultaneously the other ICE vehicles will also become cleaner, not to the extent of 100%, but to a lesser extent, but they will overall reduce the carbon footprint. We also to take note of the fact that even if we could bring EVs in faster, the electric generation which drives these cars is largely 75% of it is thermal power.
That's right.
And therefore, if you look at the total carbon footprint, electric vehicles, if you have 75% thermal power by coal burning, is not going to help in reducing the carbon footprint very much. You may feel satisfied that these cars are clean.
It may have shifted the pollution to outside the city.
But we have to reduce the carbon footprint of the country as a whole.
That's right.
Not in Delhi or Bombay itself.
That's right.
And that is why we think that these other technologies, biogas, for example, in India, is a very clean fuel and it's actually carbon negative. I think that's one of the areas where we need to put in a lot more effort.
So is policy lacking in that focus right now?
I think government is very well aware of this situation. Mr. Gadkari recently made a statement saying that the GST Council next will consider hybrid technology. Today, hybrid technology is suitable for bigger cars. But I believe that in the course of the next few years, there will be developments in hybrid technology which will lower the cost and make it available for smaller cars also.
Okay. So if you were to look ahead and visualize in 2047, which is the year that everybody is talking about, what kind of automobile industry that you envisage? Given the kind of steps that we have taken so far, your company has taken, what kind of a composition that you will see in the auto industry?
I think by 2047, Ashok, we must have much cleaner cars throughout India. Much larger percentage, maybe all of them by then.
Maybe all of them.
Because we are almost 25 years away. And whether there will be electric cars or whether some new technology will come up, I don't know. But I also see that by that time, India will be a major producer of cars. And I think a major exporter of cars. Because I think this craze for large vehicles, for big SUVs and all that, will pass in the coming years.
Okay.
I think the world will gradually realize that you don't need to have such big vehicles if you really are aware of the environmental needs.
Okay.
Because big cars not only in terms of operation, but in terms of manufacture, in terms of the material used, all generate a lot of carbon footprint.
That's right.
And I think to get into the globally low carbon footprint, cars will tend to move towards smaller size.
Okay.
And I think India is well placed to take advantage of that.
So if that were to happen, if that dream of yours, your plan of yours, have to be realized, what are the 3 big steps that we need to take? You know, I mean, a lot of people say that when you want to go in for an EV, you say, oh, charging facility nahi hai. So there's an infrastructure problem. There is a technology problem. You talked about alternatives in biogas, which is probably, you said, is the better alternative. So what kind of steps that the government, because government has to facilitate those policies and steps.
No,
What will be your advice to the government on these issues?
The government has to move as rapidly as possible towards ensuring that electricity generation in India is clean and is not dependent on thermal power.
That's you think is an important...
That's a basic requirement, because you cannot get a low carbon footprint from the transportation sector if your electric generation is not clean.
Okay.
That's the biggest step which we need to take.
Well, you are making a very important point. You are saying that the goal is not to have EVs. The goal is to have lower footprint.
Have clean power.
Yeah.
Because power generation is not only here, it's everywhere.
Okay.
And if you're burning, like last year, we think we did 1 billion tons of coal in production.
Yes,
in
that's
India.
right. It's a big
If
jump.
you burn 1 billion tons of coal, you look at the carbon CO2 emissions in the air.
Yeah.
So I think the electricity sector is a major requirement. If that happens, the move towards electric cars will become faster. I think people will move towards smaller electric cars, and I think technology will develop so that electric cars will become feasible for smaller sizes. I think battery technology will change. The current battery already is changing. I think Toyota has brought out a solid-state battery, which is smaller, lighter, and much less thing. But we have to remember that electric vehicles ultimately are not using totally renewable materials.
That's right, yeah.
And there's a lot of literature about how much carbon is generated in the production and the mining of lithium, the production of batteries and things.
Yeah, that's right.
So these are areas where you have to work on, and I think we have to look at other alternative technologies. I think the electric car may not be the final word if you're looking not at 2047, but let's say 2087. I don't think it will be the final word. I think we need something which is much more renewable, which is clean, which does not require imports in this extent. I think that's the ultimate goal. Hydrogen maybe.
Hydrogen maybe. So, and in the interim, obviously you'll be focused on creating the kind of infrastructure that is necessary for...
Because this is a transition, and you have to stay at each stage of this transition. What is your best strategy at that moment of time?
That's right.
What is the ultimate goal need not be the answer for the intermediate period.
Okay.
You have to be very flexible in that.
Yeah. Before I start inviting questions from the floor, I cannot resist the temptation of asking this question to you, that everybody talks about artificial intelligence, and we also had a session yesterday on artificial intelligence, and we all keep talking about the use of AI. How do you see the use of AI impacting the automotive sector in terms of the shop floor experience, in terms of the number of people that you use for producing one car? Is there any study, what kind of scenario that you see, let's say in 25 years from now, how will it be?
See, Ashok, I am not very much of an expert on what all AI can do. But I do not see that AI by itself can do many of the jobs which are done on the car manufacturing shop floor. The assembly process of vehicles.
Yeah.
You can't even use robots for that.
Yeah,
Nobody's ever been able to use a robot for doing that yet.
Sure.
Assembly line is a manual operation. It requires people to do some work. some of the other operations are already highly robotized. And artificial intelligence can make
play a
them
role there.
Bit more efficient to do that way.
How much of that role is right now in robotized role in a car manufacturing?
You know, a lot of the welding operations
They're
are
robotized.
robotized because welding is an operation which is not very, let's say, comfortable to do. It's a little bit hazardous also. It tires out the worker substantially.
That's right.
And so the workers are quite happy if that operation is done by robots. In the machine shops, a lot of automation has come in because you want consistent pinpoint accuracies.
Okay.
That is very difficult to do manually.
That's right.
So in those areas, you already have robotization happening, and artificial intelligence can only
Will play a role there.
I believe artificial intelligence will certainly help us take decisions which are more data-based, rather than lots of decisions we take are today intuitive or based on your gut feeling or what sort of perceptions you have.
Okay.
AI will make them much more objective, much more data-oriented.
That's
So I
right.
think the quality of decision-making will improve, the speed of decision-making will improve,
That's right.
and ultimately, the manufacturing of goods has to become as efficient as possible.
Okay.
And the employment generation, one should not look that the major jobs will be created actually in the manufacturing process. The jobs are created post-manufacturing in the transportation, distribution, maintenance, and use. And
So it is a manufacturing-led services.
The better you manufacture, the more people who can afford to get products, therefore, because they have become less costly. The more the employment will grow.
That's right.
So I don't think AI will bring down employment.
So that's a broad message in automotive sector at least. If there are any questions, please raise your, that's the lady there. Please identify yourself. I think she's there. No, I think you should get a mic.
Thank you so much. Hello. Hello everyone, my name is Vidushi Sinha. Thank you so much for the insight, sir. I am a Gen Z in this room and I'm all ready to jump on the EV bandwagon, and my question is sort of related to that. I wanted to understand your perspective on the kind of impact electric vehicles will have in the automotive ecosystem in terms of manufacturing, supply chain management, aftermarket services. Can we preempt these changes, these shifts in the market? Have we already done that? And what do you hope, what do you expect Maruti to play a role in this entire scenario? How do you want Maruti to go ahead in this shift in the market?
See, every time you bring in a new technology, you have to simultaneously make changes in your supply chain, in your dealership training, in your workshops, workshop equipment, vendor component manufacturing. All of that has to be done. So EVs is another stage in the development of new technologies. And all companies, not only Maruti, all companies who are getting into EVs are making the necessary adjustments and changes. It's not, a lot of the car remains the same. What changes is the powertrain. The engine and the gearbox is really where the major change takes place. The rest of the body, whether it's the wheels or the lighting or the thing, that remains the same. So there will be adjustments made. There will have to be changes made to cater to this change in the configuration of the EV. But it's not a major problem at all for anyone.
So a small follow-up. Do you think this is leading us to a more globalized approach, or is it domesticizing our approach more?
Sorry, I'm not...
Globalized or domesticized?
Is it globalized or is it domesticized? Our approach towards embracing EV in India. What you mentioned, the sort of transition where...
EVs which at least Maruti is planning to make are for the global markets also. The first batch of EVs which we produce are actually will be exported. They will not be sold in the domestic market.
So will it ever be opened for the Indian market?
I think there are other questions here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question.
Good evening, Mr. Bhargava. My name is AK Bhattacharya from Business Standard. In your book, Maruti Story, you have written about how red tape prevented you from launching the tall boy design early, and it allowed Hyundai Santro to come into the market. What do you think happened when the SUVs became more popular and other brands were able to establish a stronger presence? What prevented Maruti from having a stronger presence in the SUV segment a little earlier?
We were at that stage not fully convinced, frankly, that SUVs would become so highly popular. We were a little delayed in getting into the SUV business. We were at that time more focused on completing the change to the BS6 standards and the emission standards. Today, as you know, Maruti is one of the two companies which are fully compliant in terms of the CAFE standards. Most of the other companies have not been able to comply fully with the CAFE standards. So we were concentrating on these regulatory things to make sure that we did not fall behind. And we did not pay attention, and actually, frankly, we didn't have the manpower to do the development work, to simultaneously do that and develop SUVs. But it doesn't make much difference. I mean, today we have the largest share of SUVs in the country today.
Okay. Final question there. I'll come to you. Yeah.
Sir, a very quick question. In fact, somebody in my family was going to buy a car, and we were looking at buying an SUV. And when we were thinking of a Maruti Suzuki, one thing which came in our minds was that iski yaar safety rating jo hai na, wo kab improve hogi. So my question to you is, what is your take on the Maruti Suzuki actually going to a 5-star rated NCAP, global NCAP? What's your take on that?
Maruti Suzuki is saying. So is safety, he's saying, talking
the
about
safety rating,
Just
the
keep
cars.
keep it closer to you.
My question to you is, Maruti's safety ratings are not
Safety
5-star. What is your take on that, and when is the company going to be there?
You know, we are, of course, fully compliant with all the government regulations on safety ratings. Safety ratings and the higher Bharat NCAP, what you're talking about, I guess, they all entail a higher cost. We are going to produce vehicles which are going to meet all these to get to the 5 stars things. But we will also give customers the option of buying cars at a slightly lower level of things, but fully compliant with the government regulations. The customer should ultimately have a choice. A customer who cannot afford a higher standard of things should not be then deprived of his right to buy a vehicle, even though he could buy a car which complies with the government standards.
Okay, 3 final questions. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Rishikant Singh. My question is a little futuristic. How do you see drone technology totally eclipsing cars when combined with mass transportation? Drone transportation.
Drone transportation, drone.
I don't think drones are going to become a substitute for, you know, you will have millions of drones flying around. I'm not sure how that will ever be regulated.
Okay.
I don't think that can ever happen.
Questions? Just be very brief because we are running out of time.
Myself, Kumar Bishwas. My first Maruti car was in the early 1980s. My question is, how at that point of time, Maruti came with the ideas of taking subscription or collection of money, contribution or booking value, what precisely we can say from the consumers. What was the genesis?
Oh, that was a very simple one. When we exhibited the cars all over country before we launched the cars, the assessment was that the demand for the car would be way beyond our production capacity. You know, that time our production capacity is supposed to be 20,000 cars a year. And we felt that the demand would be far larger. If that situation had come to pass, there would have been a huge amount of black marketing done by the dealers in selling the cars. And the allegations would have been that the dealers are in connivance with the management. And some of this black money is finding its way to the top. We did not want that situation to happen. So we wanted to devise an orderly system of distribution of cars, which did not leave any possibility of anybody jumping the queue.
As simple as that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Sir,
that.
could I as well ask?
Just a minute. I think
Yeah.
you have already asked your question once.
Very good evening, sir. This is Rajiv from Business Standard only. Government in August 2021 announced the vehicle scraping policy, and it's been almost close to 3 years. But on the ground, the policy doesn't seem to have any impact. I know of people, those who have dismantled their car, officially got a COD, they go to the dealership asking for discounts and rebates, nothing comes out of this. Very straightforward 2 points. Is there an industry reluctance happening for not giving the necessary discounts, rebates that the vehicle scrapping policy envisages? Or is it a central state government dispute which is still causing conflict for that policy to be implemented for the consumer's benefit?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I don't see how the dealers should give a discount for a scrapped vehicle. You've used the vehicle for this full life. And then you're saying the dealer should sell a vehicle at a loss.
I
There
think
is,
this
sir, there is
question
a,
should be addressed
there is
to
a
the
4
government.
to 5% ex-showroom discount as per
Any
the
case,
policy.
I don't think we are concerned with implementing this scrapping
Policy,
policy.
yeah.
It's a government policy.
Policy, yeah.
You should go to government to ask these questions.
Thank you.
The last question for the session, we have already exceeded time.
Sir,
Yeah.
this is C. Sharma. Last month only I purchased Honda City. I was planning to buy Siaj.
I mean,
The only issue was safety. Why does Maruti have any plan to apply the same safety standard as Honda City is? See,
I'm
and
not
I
aware
think-
of whether we have still got 5-star ratings done for Ciaz or not, but the Ciaz is a perfectly safe vehicle. You know, it meets all the government regulations.
But I'm telling you my experience.
You want
last-
higher standards? I can't tell offhand where we are.
Yeah, I think that's a very personal question. We are not here to answer your personal questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Bhargav, for spending time with us, answering personal questions also, difficult questions as well. And once again, please give him a big hand, and thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a round of applause for Shri RC Bhargava. Sir, may I request you, if you may, to just pose for us, a photograph for us. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time out and making the effort and joining us here at Business Standard Manthan. Thank you very much.